Do you have to give it a go for recording?
Do a what?
Sometimes he has to push something. Is it okay?
Well,
Yep, we're good. Okay.
Okay.
No, that's your.
We're good.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So we're with Kevin Bowen.
We do want to start so we know where it
Yes,
started. We're like,
yes.
and
Here.
action.
Action, Kevin. Thank you for joining us on our podcast.
Of course. Why not?
Why
It's
not?
been a long time, right?
I know. I was
Right.
trying to remember the last time you and I were in person, and I couldn't remember if it was the last PMA in Monterey or if it was when you did the women in Santa Fe.
The last time in person, I think, was the women, because I didn't go to the Monterey
So that's been a
PMA.
long moment.
And I haven't been to any others, since.
Me either. Yeah. But yeah, it's been a long time. But it's good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're live and alive.
Yeah, we are live.
And
Kind of. But I know Davida and I told you that one of your newsletters had inspired a podcast for us. And it was the article or the newsletter that you sent, but I saw it on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
that.
it really spoke to us because of the teacher training here. It was the same thing. We're having a lot of like, well, I saw it on Instagram. Why am I not learning this? Or, and we were kind of wondering what really was that moment for you in regards to that article, like what pushed you to do that?
Well, what's funny, you know how long I've been in this business, right? So throughout its, my tenure within the Pilates world, which is it only goes back to 95. Still, that's a long time ago. Little things have happened all along the way, and you know how Instagram inspires so many people in good and bad ways. And even before, well, during that time, I was just hearing from people. And of course, I listen to students. I work with our students quite a bit, and they'll ask a question on a tutorial. Well, what about this? Or what about that? Why aren't we doing this? Just like what you've experienced, right? And it kind of gets to, I understand people's inquisitive need, but today, and we, myself included, our attention spans are kind of short, and I think that and I think that that happens with the students, and they listen and they hear someone else and they see some flirty, squirty, that sounds awful, boy or girl doing Pilates, and everyone's like, ooh, wow, which that's good in some ways and bad in others, because it seems like, if you think it in one way, we have all of this information out there. And if we're really interested in health and well-being, then it's great that there are people that are moving, if you were to think of it that way, right?
Yeah.
And then you step back and go, oh, wow, okay. I don't, get that movement, but let's figure it out. And I don't know, for me, you knew Ron Fletcher, right? I'm assuming Hillary, or yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah, well, I did. I was around Ron a lot, and some of the other, first generation teachers, and I always kept thinking to myself, God, why are they so angry sometimes? Someone would ask a question, and they would just, then always being the person who was hosting workshops like that. And this is not talking badly about any of them. You'd have to go over and kind of, now it's okay. He didn't really mean it that way, or, she didn't mean that. When they kind of did. But the real reason behind it is they were frustrated. on a multitude of levels. Am I going off topic here, or am I
No,
okay
no,
with
we're
this
still on that
discussion?
path. Yeah.
Right. So as I started to get older and, teach Pilates for a long time and all of those things, I started to get irritated too. And I remember going, I taught at a PMA conference. It was, I think, one of the ones in Denver. And, Michelle Larson and I would have this conversation when we walk into teacher Matt class at a conference because, stupid me, I'm assuming that everyone in that room are Pilates instructors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Aren't they supposed to be?
They're
I
So,
would think.
put your mats on the floor, lay down in your constructive rest position, knees bent, feet on the floor, heels in line with your sit bones, knees aligned with your hip bones, and you're back down on the mat and your arms at your side. And then we would gaze out over the room and it would be like, what is going on? This is the simplest thing I could ask you to do. And people's bodies would be all over the place. And it's hard when you have 75 people in a room when you've got about 25 of them that need to be corrected in their form, for example. So that's, part of where I would be like, God, what's going on that I can ask a Pilates teacher to go in the simplest position and we have a hot mess in front of me. I'm like,
Yeah.
so that's where my irritations start to happen is, I don't know, sometimes like, Joan Crawford, I'm dating myself. Well, Faye Dunaway playing Joan Crawford in Mommy Dearest. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the form.
Yeah.
That's that type of thing. So, to go back to, then I started to have a deeper understanding of why they would get a little snarky or upset. And one workshop I was teaching, I think this was in San Diego at a PMA conference. It was not a workshop, it was again a class because I typically just taught classes. And I don't know what came out of my mouth, but something to the effect of, I have never seen so many sloppy pelvises in one room in my life. Something like that. And do you know who Diane Diefendorfer is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was my teacher.
That was her
yeah.
After the
teacher.
workshop, Diane walks up to me and goes, well, you were channeling Ron Fletcher, I think. Luckily.
There you go.
Uh-huh.
So that kind of tells you the where I start to get really irritated. And some of my colleagues and friends are those who are on Instagram all the time, and it's all fabulous and they're all beautiful and it's all great, but somehow it's a little out of touch with reality.
Yeah, agreed.
Definitely.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I try to think, at the end of the day, what do I want to do as a teacher? I teach people to move, and I happen to use Pilates to do that. And I happen to have, some experience, some expertise in that. And that's kind of what I want, is to have people have a great movement experience. They leave. Hopefully they'll remember, because that's one thing where I do really push on my clients is, this is your homework.
Mhm.
You should go home and do this every day. I'm not asking you to do a lot. This will take 5 minutes. That's all. And if I can get that in their head, then I know that I can teach them more things. But, I can't like do backflips and cartwheels and come into the studio and be like, okay, we're going to do this today. And, it just, even when I was younger, well, maybe when I was teaching aerobics many years ago, I would do all of that crazy stuff. But I have always kind of wanted to be not more middle of the road, just safe, effective, and thinking, am I teaching them something? Or as Eve would say, or am I just a conveyor belt saying, okay, put your hand here, put your butt there, and this is what we're doing, right?
I like the conveyor belt.
Yeah. I was thinking that.
Yeah.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
It's the same, the same thing comes out of your mouth. And what do you mean you're not understanding that exercise? Or really, in a lot of cases, I would imagine what happens when teachers get frustrated with their students is they may be a little bitchier about it. Can you just do this size instead of going, hey, what's wrong? Why aren't they able to do the exercise the way I'm asking them to do it? Because it's my responsibility to give them a way to teach, or for me to teach them to do the exercise that would work for them. And beating a dead horse trying to get perfection is not going to get anyone anywhere. And at the end of the day, you're traumatizing your students, I think.
Yeah.
About what they need to do and how they need to be. So that started the Instagram thing. That's what started it, is just that I was, acknowledging sometimes also, don't get upset with me, but sometimes the dysfunction in our business. Sometimes, a lot of times, among all of us. This is what I've talked about. And if I'm saying something, it's because this is part of what's in me as well, that I have to look at. But the perfection among some of my female colleagues, now my male colleagues probably have the same thing, but we're men, so we don't talk about it. But the dysfunction about, why does she look so good and I don't? I just need to lose that 5 more pounds. And whatever it is, I mean, sometimes I've yelled at some of them, like, would you just shut up already? You're beautiful, you move beautifully. Other women, other men, other people, they're all envious of you. Why don't beat yourself up? Now, I've done the same thing to myself. Sometimes I still do it. So I have to look at that, but I think of it in the way that my dysfunction, I do not want to impart onto my students. And so I think we need to have, some caution there about how we teach our students about body image and, I don't know, self-love.
Yeah.
I don't care for the term self-care. I'm sorry. It's just overused a lot of times, but that's just me. So do you have any other question you want me to go off on?
Yeah, I want to let
Okay.
Davida ask the next one, because it's kind of along the same line, but I think we're very curious as to what your thought process is on this one.
Well,
Okay.
we were discussing, the current, Hillary and I always talk about the current state of the industry. And just like you were just mentioning, there is a lot of dysfunction that we're seeing in current teacher training programs and current people being certified, not being certified, saying that they certify people when they don't. And so with your history with the PMA, and the whole original lawsuit from the 90s,
creating the PMA
creating
and
the
going
PMA, we're just wondering like how you would think about the current time, what we're seeing in the industry compared to back then when that lawsuit was happening, maybe before or right when the PMA was being started, and like where we are now as an industry.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there actually were some similarities that, right around the time when I was just getting trained and finishing training, and, the lawsuit had already been going on for a number of years. There was always the confusion about, we stem it back to who's doing real Pilates, right? And there were people back then who shall remain nameless, because sometimes I know where all the bodies are buried, but who were starting instructor training programs who hadn't even finished their own instructor training program. But because they had a credential after their name, I think they thought it was cool. And that started a lot of things that were happening in the industry back then, where there were certain people who were running training programs who were, making nice livings, but really didn't have, and I hate to use this term, but maybe historical reference points and understanding. Let's forget about classical, because that gets so, if I ask 10 people what classical Pilates is that are all Pilates teachers, each one of them will have a different answer. And sometimes the answers are, so,
Yeah.
sorry. Like, what is classical Pilates? Well, no, like, you should be able to spit that out of your mouth if you're going to start to talk that. So to go back to that, I have a very hybrid training background. Not like Jillian Hessel, but like her in the fact that I've trained with a lot of people. I started with Madeline Black. I've worked with some people in Florida who had been teaching for years, were not instructor educators, Alba Carter, and a couple of other folks down there who, I just kind of took class from, and I finished my training with Deborah Lesson. And then all along the way, right, I got to meet, spend time with, break bread with, have conversations about the first generation teachers. From the only one that I missed, of course, well, two, Eve. I was here in Santa Fe many years ago when Eve was still alive, and I knew Michelle back then because she used my aerobics studio to dance rehearsing because I had a really lovely wood floor. And she introduced the Pilates method to me through the first newsletter that the Institute put out, but I never, I was like, I don't know what this is, right? So I was more interested in, wearing my shorts and my tank tops and putting loud music on and dancing around. So that was fun, though.
Great too.
So having that frame of reference, so to speak, to be able to listen and have conversations with these first generations, not Eve and not Corolla, because Corolla passed away just before the lawsuit was finalized. And having the experience of spending time with the rest of them, Lolita, Mary, Ron, Romana, who am I missing? I'm missing someone. What?
Kathy Grant.
Kathy Grant. Yeah, duh.
Ah.
That one. That I had a very different experience, and those experiences were somewhat where they were teaching a workshop, other times when we were having conversations about things, and just other times where I was observing how they were teaching and what they were doing. And that is unique to not a lot of us at this point. So back then, the reason when we started the PMA that we brought the first generation teachers in is because they were the foundation of the Pilates method. Of course, Mr. Pilates and Clara were, but all of those first generation teachers had a lot more insider information than we did. And I was lucky enough to train at Deborah Lesson's studio that was really set up more very closely to how Corolla trained and Joe trained in the studio. So I was lucky to learn that, which was, 3 to 4 people in the studio at a time with 1, 2 teachers, depending on how reliant some of the clients were. And, thinking on your feet and putting people through a session. And having a deeper understanding that your clients needed to learn what their workout was, because Pilates wasn't all about privates. Privates were just in the very beginning, and then you went into working in a studio with other people and feeding off that energy, which I think is really kind of cool, and being with your teachers and having a little camaraderie there, and also the focus and the attention that you, as a client, needed to know your workout. Your teacher was there, but they were fine tuning, observing, giving you certain cues and assisting you, but they weren't, like, okay, Hillary, the next exercise, it's the 100. Remember that, inhale for 10 counts, exhale for, right? So, or inhale for 5 and exhale for 10. I've changed it completely, right? So, that I'm also in that phase where I went from that kind of training program and that understanding of teaching to then all of a sudden when group classes came on board, right?
I remember that. Yeah.
So I was lucky because I taught group classes in health clubs and ran programs, and I had that background and I could think in my head. A lot of teaching are really great. For example, aerobics classes, if you wanted to get your students to move like you, some old school way was you just started dancing and doing it. Okay, we're going to go this way, right? We're going to come back this way. But if you did it on the beat of the music and you cued them at least 4 counts in advance, then you could likely get the room to follow you a lot better. And I really focused on how do I cue people? What do I say to them? How do I get these 50 people that I'm teaching aerobics to grapevine to the right, step touch, grapevine left, and step touch without having a disaster happen in the room, right? So I was in that framework. And, to go back to then, people were learning about group classes. And some people were like, no. And others were like, I thought, well, I like this because I could teach 5 group classes in a row and not really be mentally drained like you would be if you did 5 difficult privates in a row. And
Yeah.
I liked that part of it. So compared to today, I don't know, everything's become very formulaic if you're looking at that, right? So we have Club Pilates and the Legree method and whatever that thing is that Tracy Anderson put out, and I'm not even sure if it's real or not.
Just looking at
We're
that
not
this
sure.
morning.
Yeah.
And then let alone, let's sidebar here. Making a piece of equipment that is that complex requires a lot of expertise. And people will tell you that they could make it for you, but if they don't have the understanding of the exercise program or what you're trying to do or how things work or capacities and all of those things, you are going to end up spending a lot of money on a piece of equipment that may not really function in a year's time well. So let's go back. Pull it all back together. I think today, if we compare it to back then, there are still a lot of people who don't really know what Pilates is. They think it's some exercises. They think it's some exercises on equipment. They think it's the reformer. Some of them may think it's the tower, but most probably think it's a reformer. And there's no intrinsic capacity to understand how all the pieces fit together. And when I talk about that, and we've all done it with our instructor training programs, but how you take how some people do reformer 1, reformer 2, reformer 3. I'm a reformer certified. Okay. And then how do you integrate it? How do you understand what do we do in the Cadillac and how does it relate to the reformer and what's the difference in the movement? And don't even get me started on people who don't understand the equipment. Because that's another thing, whether you have grots in your studio, right?
Yeah.
So here, because I ran training when I opened this studio, I have a whole bunch of different equipment because I want them to be able to see it. I'm not saying I think it's better than, I just want them to be accustomed to it. So I have I have original made for her. And if you want me to be a hardcore, snob, you're not doing Pilates unless you're doing it on that piece of equipment because everything else has been changed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
And nothing against squats, nothing against contrology, nothing against Pilates design, none of that. It's just that if you really want to be down to brass tacks, that's what it felt like being on that piece of equipment. And, I put some clients on and they're like, oh, the shoulder blocks are too hard and the foot bar's too little. And, I'm like, suck it up. Because if you didn't know, right? So I always say to students,
Oh no. We lost him. He'll come back. He'll come back. We'll just keep talking because he'll come back.
Well, what he's talking about with the like Instagram stuff, it's so funny because it's like what he's saying right now about the apparatus, and it should be
There
a
he
certain
is.
way.
Yeah,
It's
I
like all the stuff
agree.
we see on Instagram when people
Yeah.
are flying off, and like how should that equipment be properly utilized? That if it's not used in a certain way, then it's
not gonna
dangerous
work.
because it's designed for certain movements, like we've said.
I feel like we don't have a visual, Kevin. Can you hear us? Seems like not. No. He's logged on, but we can't see or hear him. I think the connection got bad.
Yeah, well, it started like freezing.
Yeah. Oh, he
Oh.
left. He'll come back. Oh, but what you were saying. I feel like everything he's saying, we've been talking about the last few days.
Yeah, like everything, well, the crazy Tracy Anderson apparatus, and then it's like, if something's gonna be designed a certain way, you need to have expertise designing it. And it needs to be safe, and you need to know how to properly utilize it.
Should we pause? Yeah, we're gonna take a moment and pause. There's the recording.
Here we go. Let's record.
Pause. You're back. Yay!
sorry, I don't know what. Okay, should we take up where I left off? I remember you said. Are you guys okay?
Yeah, you were talking about the apparatus.
Equipment.
Yeah.
Right. If you know your equipment, then that's better. But even today, people will say, oh, well, I don't know how to use that equipment. Well, the reformer has a carriage and springs. The carriage moves out and it comes in. It has a foot bar. It has straps or ropes and handles or loops, and it has adjustments. It's not really that challenging for us to do. It would be like saying, if you're a personal trainer, I don't know how to use, the dumbbells. Okay. Because it's a different brand, right? Or something to that effect.
That's true.
So I think if you want to do the apples and oranges for, when PMA started and to today, I think that, a lot of things got out of the barn. And we're playing catch up with a lot of that. And I'll give you an example. I have a newer client here, who is a lovely woman. She's done Pilates for years. She does a great job. Doesn't really have many injuries considering her age. I don't want to say too much about her because it may give it away.
Yeah.
She very intelligent, and was taking Pilates with someone in another country because they were there for about 3 years, and came back to Santa Fe and looked up things and saw my name. I don't know, she just saw Core Dynamics, right? So she decided that she was going to come here. And let me just do one thing here. So we started doing sessions, and the first session she was okay, and then She said, well, the last person I was working with, we would just do all of these things. I said, oh, well, really, what are all of those things? Well, I would do this over here, then I would do that. And so we had a conversation, and I said, that's not exactly what I do or how I teach, and here's why. So I began an explanation to her as to why the order, and we can argue about the order, but why an order and a thought process is really important. And that if you were training someone and giving them all sorts of different things, because every time apparently she went to the studio was something different. It was never the same workout. And she's a very bright woman. So as I started to explain to her, I said, I want you to learn what I'm teaching you. And I want to see if you can remember what's coming next, because that's the only way we're going to progress. But if every time that you came in, I was teaching you something different, how would you know if you mastered anything? And then she thought about it and she went, oh. And I said, so you probably got a great workout that you thought was a great workout.
Right.
And maybe it really wasn't what you needed. And she, because she divulged to me, hopefully this is not a giveaway, that she had had a brain tumor and had the tumor removed and had quite a rehabilitation period. So I'm sure she told her other teacher that when you hear something like that, why would you give anyone multiple different things to do? It's the same thing I tell my students is, how can you tell if anyone learned anything? If you say, okay, we're going to do upstretch now, and they look at you like, huh? Right? And how can they know if they've done a better job at remembering and organizing their body and doing all of those things if you are always teaching them something different? I'm still battling this. She's been with me now for 4.5 months, and it comes up all the time. I mean, I basically, how I won her over is her form kind of sucks. So I said, hey, can we try to make this look pretty? And she went, what? And I said, this is about movement and appreciating things. It's a little artistic in some ways. So if you're in great form, it makes me feel good, should make you feel good too, and you would be in a great position. And if I tell you, wow, that really looks pretty, I just mean you're doing a great job and you're getting in form. And then she kind of went, oh, now I get it. I'm like, yes. And whatever clicked in her head, I have no idea. But that's my point is, if you think about like what pisses me off, if I was going to, take 25 years of my maturity off right now, it would be like, what the fuck, excuse me, are these people
You
teaching?
said you were good.
Right? Wait, what are you teaching that this client of yours can't come into a Pilates studio? Like, Lord knows that's going to be like classical now. What is classical Pilates? How about just what's a Pilates studio? Can't walk into a Pilates studio and start to do exercises because whatever this person taught them is not really. It's not that the exercises weren't Pilates, but there was no semblance of order to it or thought processes. What I tell students in the training program, and even what I tell clients when I want to kind of scare the bejesus out of them, is I tell them, hey, I watch you from the minute you walk in the door and put your things down and take your shoes off to see what you're doing. Because
Mhm.
workout starts the minute that door closes. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is like, I watch how you walk across the floor. I walk how sometimes I will intentionally throw something on the floor so you pick it up, because I want to see how you move, because that tells me so much. And I want them to get in the mindset that you have to be thoughtful. of everything you do. Because you know what? I guarantee you're going to leave here and just be, you know, what's next? What's on my Instagram? What's going on? Where am I going? I'm driving. I better not text and drive at the same, whatever it is. But at least if you had 2 1-hour sessions a week where the person, you know, made you pay attention to what you were doing and made you focus about your body and think and do the best you can do for your body in that exercise or in the workout, that makes a big difference. You
Oh,
know that. I'm
yeah.
preaching to the choir here.
Yeah. I had a client that she said it was her, she's from Japan. She couldn't really think of a perfect word, but I think it is a perfect word. But she said it's her meditation.
Yeah.
That she comes in and she's able to focus and forget the world and focus on everything and the movement. And that's what we want.
Well, it's part of why people feel better leaving, is because they can actually center and focus for hopefully that full hour.
Well, and you know, ladies, how many women have come into my studio before telling me more information than I needed to know, but something like, I'm having my period and I don't really want to be here. I'm like, okay, we're going to work out even harder today. Let's go. Because at the end of the session, they're like, oh, I feel great now.
I feel better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, I'm digressing a little bit to go back to the conundrum we're in. Is that where you?
Yeah. It feels
Yeah.
like it. And I know with your teacher training and the teacher training we have, it's like it's coming out a lot in terms of, well, why do I need to go through this, you know, and learn all this when I can go here and just learn this? And
well, the fast-paced programs that are taking precedence over the comprehensive programs that like we have that are requiring critical
like
thinking.
Learning the system, like you're talking about, like learning how everything is
a system and requiring critical thinking of all the teachers, requiring long-term study and actually understanding to impart that on the clients and students.
That's what made us think of the PMA, like from there to here. It's like,
but that was probably more entrenched in the beginning as we started to develop the certification exam and all of those things. But you know, now that we are where we are right now, I mean, I see the PMA putting out a lot of different workshops and things. And I'm sure some are good and some other things I've looked at and I'm just like, what is that?
So that's something I noticed recently. One of the education continued things that they're giving, there's a lot of actually misinformation, like not scientifically based courses that are there. So that's a big concern. Some like
really? Yeah.
Some outdated evidence and you know, so it's not great. And now we have like the PMA and the NPCP, and people are confused about that and where that goes, let alone just being certified or not certified. People don't even know the difference in the organizations.
No, I don't think the general public anymore. You know, I can say this because I started it. I think we have done a really shitty job of informing the general public of what the Pilates method is all about.
yeah.
Now we are talking 24 years later, and I don't care because those colleagues that are still there will disagree with me, but it is the truth. We're all over the place, and you know that's a good thing in that people are moving, but we have an aging population. You know, don't get me started on my other side doing human rights work. We have a traumatized population.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you address those things? And if you have a lot of experience, then you can. Or also, if maybe you have humility and you step back and think to yourself, I don't really know that much. I mean, I may say all the things I'm saying, but I don't think I'm, you know, all that. I am a teacher and I teach movement, and I teach students. And my wish is, and I tell my students, what I want is that I've set the foundation for you to continue to grow and change, because you know this much of what
Yeah.
you're going to eventually know when the training program is over. And because I think, Hillary, you think the same way. I want the students to walk out with thinking. They may not be perfect at every exercise, but I want them to be able to go, oh, that looks like that, or
Mhm.
looks like this, or maybe I shouldn't do that exercise there and I should do it over there, or just simply, I don't know, I need to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
Um, I don't want them, walking around like, so good. I'm so good at what I do. So I would say that we're kind of in that place again. And the worst part is between 24 years ago and today, people's attention span is about this big.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you guys, I'm sure, remember when you entered teacher training. I was just like, oh my God,
Huh.
so enamored with the fact that I felt good after I started doing things. And then, of course, I had a little male ego problem because, when Madeline Black was telling me, you can't do that exercise. I got to show you how to do it. I was a little pissed off in the, way back in the beginning, because I thought, well, I've been teaching aerobics and I've been doing this and I've done all these things. I should know all of this. Well, hey, guess what, Buster? You don't. And when I stepped back and realized that, that's when things started to change. I still remember things back from my teacher training program. I still impart some of that knowledge on people because it was eye-opening for me in a lot of ways. And I'm really thrilled when I see new students really put their all into it. I don't run a big teacher training program. But I think I run a really good teacher training program with a bunch of people that really care, all of the educators, about what our students, get out of the program. And that was the kind of a big difference between how Eve trained people and worked with them, and how she imparted that on Suzanne and Michelle and Deborah, and especially, I'll say Michelle because she was one of my mentors. And Michelle was never, she was never a bitch about anything, right?
No.
I mean, sometimes if you pushed her. Yeah, we had a training program when we started in Miami some years ago, a second run through, or maybe it was the third, I think it was the second. We had physical therapists come into the training program. And there were these two cute young women who really, were above everyone else because they were PTs. And Michelle was in, it was a training, I think it was beginning of December one year. And Michelle was getting everyone to do some exercises. And these two women, these two girls, I'll call them girls because they were quite young. They were in their mid-20s, just out of PT school. They said to Michelle, well, we didn't come here to learn how to do Pilates. We came here to teach it.
Oh.
And she said, to learn how to teach it. And she said, oh, really? Well, why don't you go and dance the Nutcracker? Miami City Ballet is right in the process of their rehearsals. Why don't you go over there and do that too? Well, I don't know how to do ballet. And she said, you don't know how to do Pilates either, so you better learn.
Love that.
But nothing, right? And that was kind of, that was a few times when she would get upset about something. It was like, first off, how insulting. Not realizing Michelle's like the most fabulous person
I know.
to say, we don't want to learn how to do it. We just want to teach it. Well, how can you teach anything you don't know? I mean, I don't care if you have a degree or not, people. It doesn't make any difference. And that's brings us back to today, in my opinion, is here, Hillary, here's the list of exercises you're going to teach, and put your microphone on and
Mhm.
let's get going, right? And just follow this order and everyone will be fine. Oh, it's okay. That woman, if she fell on the floor, just let her get up. It's okay. You know, I'm exaggerating, but maybe I'm
No,
not.
I don't think,
I
yeah, I
mean,
don't think you
I
do.
don't think
Pretty much.
We see it on Instagram all the time.
It's about where we're at.
We don't want to go there. But I don't want to keep you much longer, but we do have a question that it's kind of loaded again. But what do you think in terms of what counts as Pilates? And does it matter? And where is that line?
Oh, it's actually kind of an easy answer, at least for me. It, if you want to teach from the historical perspective, you have to teach an order. If you want to make adjustments to that order, Deborah made adjustments to the order. That's fine, as long as the thought process is behind it and why you did it. That's number one.
Mhm.
Number two is you teach to the principles, no matter what it is you're teaching. If you start with whole body health, whole body commitment, and breath, so we're talking holistic health, that's Pilates to me. If you're talking about using the other principles, balance, control, flowing motion, you know, etc. If you're teaching to those, then you're teaching Pilates. If you're doing sets and repetitions, you're not. If you're heating the room up to 104 degrees, you're not teaching. If you're bouncing everyone around the room and doing different things with no thought process to it, that's not Pilates. And if you're not imparting knowledge into your clients that they step out of the studio with and you change their life, then you're not teaching Pilates.
Agree 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, how you teach short spine and how I teach short spine. And I will go into my cranky self here right now. I sometimes delete certain exercises. New clients, there's over 70. I don't teach them the 100 right away, later. I adjust exercise because I'm going to go back to what does it look like? And I found for me, if I adjust an exercise in a specific way, I can get the client to do it. That's my end goal, is that they're paying attention and they listen to the cueing and they get to do it. And, you know, the sidebar to all of this is because I just don't want to see it being done poorly. Right?
Yeah.
No, that people are not going to be perfect in the beginning when they're new clients. And I still take new clients, of course, but I try to simplify things down. So when I get them to a point when it's time to move up to the next level, that I know that they're in their body enough and I teach them what Eve would say, it's a concept of movement. Each exercise is a concept of movement. And we teach, you know, it's a philosophy of how we do things. It's not standard fitness, but Carola Trier said it was exercise, and it is. It's PT, but it's not PT. It's functional movement. It's used in PT, but that's where I start to draw the line. If I can look at someone and see as a teacher that they're actually teaching something and they're moving someone, then that's great. If they're my students, then I do have to tell them a few things, right? Because I have to say, look, I don't know why you did that. I just gave a test to some students in Singapore. I hope no one's listening from Singapore. And one of them did a teaser modification that was unsafe, way unsafe. And that was deeply concerning to me because I didn't teach them that. Someone there did. And I'm not sure where they saw it, or someone on Instagram did it and they thought it was safe,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
now they're gonna, you know, choose to do it on their test and it becomes a problematic situation. And there are reasons why we give practical tests, is because I don't want anyone to hurt someone. And if I don't think that you can give a tactile cue, or more importantly, a cue that will prevent someone from being injured, like tactile from that standpoint, that's a problem. Or the headrest is up in short spine. I'm sure that goes on in lots of studios around the country right now. And we probably don't call it short spine, we call it some stupid other thing.
Who knows what it's
You know.
called?
I don't know. I don't know. So, so yeah. So I've written this, but yeah, a week from tomorrow, I have a total reverse shoulder replacement done. And I've just started videotaping some of the work I've done for that
Yeah,
prehab style. And then I'm going to
Nice.
tape my beginning PT and rehab and all the other things. Cause hey, it's a learning experience.
that's right.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, I also, you know, in the beginning, I didn't want to admit that I had this major injury. So I felt, you know, like I needed to lose 5 pounds, right? You know, that kind of feeling. I'm not that good, but, you know, I had to get over it. I had to face the facts that now I can't demonstrate a lot of stuff in the studio, and I'm really sick and tired of that. So, after busting a doctor's chops for 4 years, he's going to perform the surgery. So,
That's next week.
next Thursday, yeah.
Oh, wow. You'll have to let us know how it goes.
I will. I'll send you a picture. I don't post this stuff on internet.
No, just text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facebook, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
We'll keep it between us.
yeah, I mean, I'll release the videos and I'll put them in our private library on Pilates anytime, but I don't like, I don't want people's, you know, sympathy. That's not real.
No,
Performative.
it's performative.
Formative, yes, yes. So I will say one more thing and then we can get off. Oddly enough, with the work that I'm doing now with the Human Rights Alliance and dealing with a lot of different people and people understanding one another and trauma and all of those things, I can tell you that my background of many years of teaching Pilates has come in just like I had no idea how much it has, because I know how to read people and I know how to talk to them. And I've learned so many things from understanding human movement and seeing human movement and understanding all the different personalities that come in the studio that have been really helpful to me, and kind of put me in a very different place that I don't think I would have been in if I hadn't been a Pilates instructor. So there's that for you too.
That's a gift.
I love
I
that.
love
Yeah,
that.
and that really shows like how much we do for people. Like, and like you've been saying, it's not just movement on a reformer. Like there's so much depth to what we
Yeah.
give people, what we do as Pilates teachers.
And I do think what you're doing is amazing work. And what you said about how we have clients now coming in that are traumatized, and us being the teachers that we get to be, we get to try to give them that hour of feeling safe, of feeling supported, and, you know, calming that nervous system down or whatever it is they need.
It's interesting because most of the work that I do now, besides here, you know, with teacher training, but my clientele is very limited at this point. I do it all verbally, or I talk to people, or we do little workshops or things of that nature. And then I look at all the people in the room and I have to take my Pilates cap off, because most of the time I'm like, oh, I need to get them moving. But there's a lot of younger people and older people with trauma who you almost have to first get through some of that and get them to, you know, care about you or have some empathetic connection. Without empathy, the world is over, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And it's lacking right now.
it's so sad. It's so
really
sad.
Yeah.
And you know, God's love to everyone, or the higher powers love to everyone. We just really need it at this point. And you know, supporting your clients, and when you're teaching classes or duets or privates or whatever, just kind of being there is important, is really important. I have a client who's a diehard Republican. And we both know that each other is, in the other way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will be honest with you, because part of what I do now with human rights work is I've found more things that we agree on than we disagree on. And that's what this is all about, because at the end of the day, being on Instagram, being in social media, doing all those things, showing all of those clips of a flat thing, right?
Yeah.
That, like us right now. And not having that dynamic connection of energy is really troubling and problematic, and probably one of the biggest reasons why we have so many issues is because no one knows how to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or listen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, both.
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you teach Pilates, you're talking.
But you're
And more
listening.
importantly, you should be listening, because you're going to get feedback from your client that you really need.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We'll close with this. I push my clients, because Eve had this big thing about, how does that feel? And I'll ask them, like, well, how does this exercise feel? And they'll say, that's okay. Well, what do you mean by okay? That's what I'll do. And they kind of step back and look at me, and I say, what I mean by that is, what does it really feel like? Does it feel like this is good for your body? Does this feel like it's a little painful? I make them think so that they can articulate what it is they're feeling, so that hopefully they can progress forward. But if you don't do that, especially when you're working with people with injuries, it's kind of, I think, again, pointless.
Agree.
Thank you so much.
I'm so happy you joined us, Kevin. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been fun to do something Pilates related on video.
And don't forget to send us the pictures of your
I will.
day yesterday.
Oh, I couldn't get any pictures with him
Oh.
because it was in this really fabulous house here, and you had to valet your car at the bottom of the hill and get a bus to go up. And I was speaking yesterday afternoon for the National Organization of Women's chapter here, and I had to leave early. So I didn't get to take any pictures, but he is the most amazing speaker, person, telling stories and making people cry. He's amazing. Hopefully he's going to run for president.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and hopefully
right.
next time it'll be in person.
Okay, sounds great.
Bye,
Bye.
Kevin.
Bye.
Bye.